Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here because we are unpacking a truly fascinating case study today. We're going to dive deep into the very real and often totally invisible psychology of human error and workplace safety. Have you ever wondered how a completely normal day at a highly regulated worksite can just suddenly spiral into a near disaster? Well, usually it's not one massive, dramatic explosion of bad judgment. Actually, it's a quiet, subtle alignment of tiny little mistakes. And that is exactly what we're going to look at today, through the lens of a pretty intense event that went down at a mining site.
Okay, let's dive into this. Distraction is the quietest yet most dangerous enemy. We often think of danger in heavy industries as, well, loud, right? Roaring engines, massive rock falls, huge heavy machinery. But this explainer is going to show you that the absolute most perilous threat out there, it's completely silent. It happens inside the mind long before any physical alarm bells start ringing. Keep this whole concept of the quiet enemy right in the front of your mind as we introduce the main character of our story. Chapter 1, A Dangerous Night Shift. Let's set the scene. Every incident has a setting, and for this one, we are heading straight into the harsh, super demanding conditions of a mine site after the sun goes down. Now, the environment alone definitely elevates the risk, but the real wild cards, they always start with the people behind the wheel. So let me introduce you to Devawa. Devawa was a new driver on the mine's transportation team, but he absolutely was not new to driving. He came in with years of experience driving large passenger buses in the big city. He knew heavy vehicles inside and out. But here's the complacency trap. Driving a city bus on nicely paved, well-lit streets is literally a completely different universe than navigating a heavy transport truck through a pitch-black, unpaved mining site. Even though he'd been working at the mine for a little over a month, Devawa still hadn't really adapted to the rugged site conditions. His high level of past experience was actually masking his current vulnerability.
Now, what's really interesting about this setup is how the environment literally shifted beneath Dava's feet before he even turned the key. He wasn't just assigned a tough night shift. The transportation manager told him the main route was under maintenance. He was instructed to take a temporary detour. Fun fact for you. Studies actually show that when drivers are forced off their familiar routes, their cognitive load spikes by up to 40%. That drastically reduces their reaction times to new hazards. So think about it. He is unadapted to the site, he's driving in the dark, and now he's forced off his regular, familiar route. The routine is entirely broken, and the stage is totally set for vulnerability.
Let's move to Chapter 2 and see how this builds. The chain of errors. You see, industrial accidents almost never happen because of just one isolated mistake. They happen when multiple layers of defense fail, one right after the other. Walk with me through this timeline here. It's honestly like watching the holes in a block of Swiss cheese perfectly aligned to let a disaster slip right through. Okay, at minute 0, the night shift is assigned. By minute 15, Devawa has taken that temporary detour, pushing him into totally unfamiliar territory. At minute 30, a personal element sneaks in. He starts texting his family. At minute 45, the external environment fails him. The warning lights on a super hazardous stretch of road are broken. And finally, at minute 60, the ultimate safety net is completely bypassed when an incoming radio call is ignored. Each step on its own, probably manageable, but stacked together, they form an absolute avalanche of compounding risk. Let's really zero in on that minute 30 mark. As Devawa got into his vehicle, his mind was, well, it was somewhere else entirely. He was texting his family on his phone, and according to the official incident report, he just had a rush of thoughts running through his head. This internal distraction is absolutely critical. Physically, sure, his hands were on the wheel, but mentally, he was miles and miles away from the hazardous section of the road that was looming just ahead of him in the dark. He created an incredibly dangerous disconnect from his immediate physical environment. But human error is really only part of the equation, right? To make matters exponentially worse, the external safety systems failed at the exact same moment Dava's internal focus sailed. The warning signal lights, which were installed specifically to highlight that hazardous area, were totally broken, not functioning at all. Now, if Dava had been paying full attention, he might have spotted the hazard himself. Or if the lights were working, they might have snapped a distracted Dava right back to reality. But with both his attention and the lights completely disabled, a crucial safety net just vanished into thin air. Which brings us to part 3. The silent signal, and those missed warnings. When a driver is distracted and the environmental warnings fail, there is usually only one single line of defense left: human-to-human communication. So I want you to think about this question for a second. What happens when the safety lifeline is completely ignored? Another vehicle traveling nearby actually spotted the danger. They grabbed the radio communication system and frantically tried to contact Dava. But isolated in his cab, his eyes glued to his phone, his mind full of thoughts, Dava just didn't respond. He missed the calls entirely. The literal voice of safety was speaking right to him, and he just didn't hear it. And this brilliantly illustrates the inevitable climax of our chain of errors. Totally unaware of the radio calls, absolutely blind to the broken signals, and completely distracted by his phone, Dava just kept driving straight into the hazard. He hit a notoriously slippery section of the road. Instantly, the rear wheels of his massive vehicle started to slide sideways, and he entirely lost control. Physics basically took over right where awareness had failed. Now, the fallout from this moment was a wild mix of incredible luck and super frustrating operational loss. Fortunately, and I mean really fortunately, there was a support vehicle traveling just behind the convoy that was close enough to provide immediate assistance. Because of this rapid response, a true tragedy was prevented. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured, but the incident was far from free. The truck's axle was heavily damaged from the slide, and the mine's entire transportation operations were completely disrupted for a full day. All of that because of a text message and a missed radio call. So let's head into our final chapter, Lessons in Vigilance. So what do we actually do with this story? We need to extract the value from it. Let's revisit our opening quote. Distraction is the quietest, yet most dangerous enemy. We saw exactly how this played out with Dava, didn't we? The danger wasn't the slippery road itself. I mean, the mind deals with slippery roads all the time. The real danger was his internal thoughts and the simple, everyday act of texting. It quietly blinded him to the external reality. Honestly, you can wear all the high-visibility gear in the world, but if your mind is distracted, you are essentially walking through your worksite blindfolded. Next up, communication is your safety lifeline. The absolute tragedy of that ignored radio call is that it was the ultimate backup plan. Active, responsive communication is what catches us when our own individual awareness fails. When we isolate ourselves, by ignoring our radios, wearing earbuds, or simply just zoning out, we completely sever our connection to the team that is actively trying to keep us alive. If warning signals are not functioning, it is your responsibility to increase your level of caution. So the crucial point here is that it is incredibly easy to just blame the broken lights, right? But broken external signals do not excuse accidents. They demand heightened internal vigilance. You simply cannot outsource your personal safety entirely to a light bulb. When the environment becomes unpredictable, your focus has to become hyper-predictable.
Which brings us to our final and honestly perhaps most important psychological comparison. Look at these two mindsets. I already know. That's the mindset of a city bus driver who thinks a mine is just another road. It leads directly to accidents. On the flip side, let me double check. That is the mindset of a true professional who respects the ever-changing hazards of their environment. And that is the mindset that gets you home safely to your family. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. When you step into your workspace tomorrow morning, which of these two mindsets is going to be sitting in the driver's seat? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep that vigilance high, and I will see you in the next explainer.